little interesting that the one of us who didn't go to Burkittsville to pay their respects to the witch ends up bedridden. Wouldn't you say?
That is actually awful interesting. Methinks I should pay a visit to the wood.
Yes.
Just to send up my regards. Hello, welcome to Guides the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her little brother, William.
And this week we are heading back to the woods to check out more of the promotional cycle for the Blair Witch Project.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. We got a lot of great feedback off of last week's episode.
Yes.
Here we are in episode 301, continuing our investigation of the Blair Witch. Specifically, again, wrapping up now the 1999 material.
That's right.
We'll save the year 2000 for future episodes because it all explodes after this. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to be talking about Curse of the Blair Witch, which I think is probably the best known of the things we're going to be talking about here.
I think so.
We're going to be talking about Sticks and Stones, which was a VHS tape exclusive to Blockbuster.
Yeah, it's awesome.
In 1999, which I think is pretty fun. And a very popular parody of the Blair Witch, the Scooby Doo Project.
Yes.
Which I think is really cool and clever and like clearly like the definition of a love letter to the Blair Witch.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's super fun and like affectionate.
Yes. So I want to start very, very briefly. I've got a couple of updates for you.
Yeah,
off of last week's
very
episode.
Excited to hear this.
Oh yeah,
this is all going to be new to me as well.
I have a few things to tell everybody because last week's episode set a few things up. The first and most disappointing piece of news, at least to me, last week we talked briefly about a book in the Blair Witch universe called Wood Witch Said. I'm not even sure if it's meant to be canon or what, but I did buy it.
Okay.
In 2017. I still cannot find it.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I will be on the lookout for that thing for the rest of my life because it doesn't seem like it's even available on the internet. I don't know how I ended up with it, and I don't know how I lost it. But also last week, I did say that I was going to be going down to Burkittsville itself for a screening of the Blair Witch Project, the first ever screening of the Blair Witch Project in Burkittsville. And so I speak to you now, a changed man. I went down.
A man who's done this.
I have returned. I am still alive. I did it.
Yeah. He's not just in the corner, folks.
No. And it was great. It was super fun.
That's awesome.
You were decidedly missed. And I can say that absolutely definitively because wonderfully, there were a bunch of Guide to the Unknown listeners there.
Right, there were like 6, right?
Yeah. So shout out to Emily, Kyle, Dustin, and Meredith of the Alexander Standard podcast.
Oh, cool.
Kayleen. Yeah, there were. I was blown away. I apologize if I'm leaving somebody out, by the way, but it was so cool. Several people came up and they were like, "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you're unavoidable." I'm so loud. Like I felt like I was being so goddamn loud. But I was so excited to be there.
Yeah.
There was a Q&A before the screening. It was hosted by Matt Blasi, who wrote that book, 8 Days in the Woods, I talked about last week. Eduardo Sanchez, co-director, co-writer, co-creator of The Blair Witch, was there along with Susie and Ingrid, who you would know better as the mother and daughter, who are interviewed at the beginning of the Blair Witch Project. It was super cool. I love that they're still like, now that baby is an adult.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Ed, one of the fishermen, was there. And Sandra, who played the server in the diner in the movie, who's like, my sister went to Blair High School.
Fun.
It was just cool. Like very fun, very cool. A lot of great questions about like, the impact of the movie and their connection to it. Which was a blast. I did my trivia event directly before the screening. I would charitably give myself, I think, an 8 out of 10. At a certain point, I was like, my whole mode here is to get up, say a few things, and get out before I embarrass myself too much. But it was fun. It was just, purely for the fun of it. So I asked some trivia questions, plugged Guide to the Unknown a couple times because I'm shameless.
I would too.
And then got out of there. But I did also get to shake hands a little bit and talk with a few people. I talked to Eduardo Sanchez himself. which was really cool. He seemed to recall me from the Hunt a Killer promotion circuit.
Yeah.
Jed Shepard, writer of Host. It was really cool to meet him.
That's
Blair
awesome.
Bathory, and I even got to run into my buddy Travis, who was our showrunner on season 2.
That's right.
First time in years.
TT, right?
TT, yes.
Yeah.
And I even have some new insight from the Blair Witch Project, the movie. So, do you remember
this?
a few years ago, remember we saw a screening of Scream? It was like the first time we'd seen Scream in a movie theater. The original. Yep. And we were like, oh my God, people are like really laughing at stuff that Dewey does.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of seeing it with fresh eyes. It sort of felt like that. People
were they laughing at like Mike?
Yes. Yeah. Mike, like in the movie, makes people laugh like wild. And like everybody, it was just like such a communal, positive feeling watching the movie.
Yeah.
But I also noticed something I've never caught before. So in the Blair Witch Project, around the time that they're arguing about the map and being like, well, let's just, we'll keep walking for another 30 minutes. We'll do another map check. Heather turns the camera back on and she goes, well, we just checked the map and we're on target. We're going the right way. And then Josh goes, that's not what I said. And they have a moment, and I never focused on it before, but I caught it here. What's happening is off camera, they must have still had a conversation that was a little more dire and negative. Like, we still don't really know where we are. But then Heather turned the camera on. And to give the appearance to anybody who might watch the tape of Control, she said, we're okay, we're on track. And Josh called her out.
Oh, I gotcha.
Which is a mechanism of found footage I don't think I've ever really seen before. The idea of like using the found footage to cover up what's really happening when the camera's not rolling.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
That is cool. I like that.
Yeah,
I've definitely never caught that.
I'd never caught that before.
I love that.
And then, I think maybe at the end of the episode, I'll tell you about the hotel.
No. Tell us now. Or are you nuts?
All right.
You have to. You must.
We'll get to the lore of the Blair Witch in just a moment, everybody.
Yep.
I had an experience. I had an experience that we have to talk about. So I revealed at the end of last week's episode that my original thought was I'm going to sleep in my car.
Right.
I was just like, whatever. I don't care. I've slept in my car before. Not that I'm proud of it, but like,
what time did the thing end?
10:30.
Yeah. Did you ever consider just going back home?
Absolutely, but I paid for the place.
Oh no, I mean before you paid for it.
Oh, no, I paid for it online. I paid for it online when I booked it initially.
I mean, like, instead of thinking, oh, I'll sleep in my car, did you ever think, like, oh, I'll just drive all the way back home?
Yes, but I thought that I might be really, 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 really tired. And 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours is a pretty long time. I guess I could have driven part way and then been like, now I'm going to sleep in my car.
Yeah.
It might have been less frightening. So
seriously, when you were texting me, I was like, I actually like the idea of you. I said to you, why don't you leave and stop at like a well-lit rest stop if you need to like close your eyes for a little bit? Because I was freaked out.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just felt like I was too in it or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I stopped at this hotel, Holiday Inn.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
I revealed last week that I actually went ahead and booked the hotel that Heather, Mike, and Josh stay at in the movie. It's like, if I'm going there, why not go the full Monty?
Absolutely.
And like experience it to the nines.
Did you go the full Monty in the hotel, or did you stay fully clothed?
Oh, I barely took my shoes off.
I bet.
In that hotel.
Yep.
So the problem started, Kristen. This is why it's like an end of the episode thing, because you know me. I'm going to attempt to make this short, but this might just be the show. I don't know what's going to happen.
I'm comfortable with that.
So the problem started like the second that I got there. I pulled up to the hotel itself, and it was kind of cool. It was that like, oh my gosh, like you don't really see the exterior of it in the movie, but it just feels like a place at a time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I went into the lobby, and it was like I made a reservation. And the manager or the guy working, whatever, he goes, okay, you're going to be in room 106. I said, okay. And he goes, now electronics don't work, so I've got this. And already I'm like, electronics don't work. Like, unpack that. Like, that sounds like ghost stuff to me.
Yes, it does.
Right? But so he holds out a little metal, like, house key.
Uh-huh.
I've stayed at hotels before that had keys, even in the modern day. So I think it's kind of charming. Mm-hmm. But so he hands me this rinky-dink house key, and he goes, do you want me to show you to your room? And I went, it's right behind the building. I can get there. And he goes, okay, but here's what you need to know. He goes, when you put the key in the lock, you have to put the key in, and then you have to pull it out a little bit to get it to turn.
Okay.
Which is weird. That's weird, right? Like, the last thing that you want is an unreliable way to get into your hotel. So
although if it's harder for somebody else to get in from the outside, true. I don't hate that.
It's not, though, because I fumbled with that key for no less than 5 minutes before I figured out the magic trick to get into that room. I'm sure I'm embellishing. I'm sure it was like 2 minutes, but still, it's a long time to try to get through your door.
You're talking to somebody with a fabled history of trouble with keys, so I understand.
Fair enough. But so I get inside, close the door behind myself, and notice problem number 1, I guess 2. The door frame is shattered.
Will sent me a picture of this, and I
posted this, yeah.
Oh my God.
I'll put it in the video version too. I'm sure it's on screen right now in the video version.
And I didn't tell you this yet. It's not a huge deal, but so, Will had told our mom that he was thinking about sleeping in his car. And she was like, absolutely not. Get a hotel room, you freak, or whatever.
I know.
And then, so that day, I was hanging out with her because I had like a thing with my husband's mom, and my mom was hanging out. And so she was like, you came up and what you were doing. And she was like, do you think he actually got a motel? And you had already texted me the picture. And I was like, no, he definitely didn't. She was like, he's not lying to me. He's just going to sleep in his car. And I was like, no, he totally did. Like, he showed me a picture. And I was like, I hope she doesn't have to see it or ask any follow-ups. And she didn't.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Because
I wouldn't have showed it to her. I would be like, oh, my phone's in the other room.
The door frame was broken in. And in the photo, I think it is incredibly evident that there had been a lock screwed into the door frame, and then, the other half of the lock screwed into the door itself. But somebody must have kicked that door in.
Yeah.
Because the frame is blasted away, and there are just empty screw holes left on the door itself. A previous lock on that door failed in violent fashion.
It looks terrible.
And there was an air freshener dangling from the pathetic chain lock.
Like a car air freshener, a little tray.
Yes. So then I looked around the room and I just got like the heebie-jeebies. It's like all demolished in there. Like there's like a chair in the corner of the room that's all like gross and stained, and it has little drippy tendrils of fabric ripped and hanging on the underside.
Ew.
There's a desk in there because I'm a businessman and I'm going to sit and do business. And the front of the drawer was ripped off.
That's right. You sent me that too. I forgot.
Broken, shattered desk, barely standing. The bathroom door has like a hole punched into it. It looks like somebody literally like lost their temper and punched the bathroom door.
Really?
And broke just that front wood panel of it.
Yeah.
And then there are 4 holes near the top of the door where presumably there had once been a coat hanger that somebody ripped off the door.
Oh my God, William.
Everything in that room.
Did you take a picture of that door?
I took pictures of everything and I left it. I attached them to the review I left of the hotel on Google.
You got to send me the picture of that door. That's crazy.
Holy crap. Everything was broken.
Oh my God.
It's
so
not a hole
scary.
through the... I want to give you the impression that somebody punched a hole straight through the door like the Terminator, but everything's broken.
No, I understand.
So I spent, 5 seconds in the bathroom just to just to get ready to go to this event for the night. Mm-hmm. And then I just left the hotel.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about it. I went to Burkittsville, which is wonderful. You've never been there, right?
No. Mm-mm.
It's so small.
Yeah.
It's great. It feels like the movie. It feels like you're walking into the movie. It does.
I will go there someday.
You absolutely will, because all intents everything points to there's going to be another one of these.
Cool.
So the mayor, Michael Robinson, he already posted a potential date for next year.
Oh, great.
Then I end up at the event. It's not in a cemetery, by the way. I don't know where I got that, and I hope I didn't mislead people. It was not in the cemetery itself. Yeah. But so I get to where the screening is, and a great time is had by all. Mm-hmm. And then I go home at night.
To your home.
To my new home. It's like 10:30 at night. So Kristen, whoa.
Oh my God, Will.
Whoa. So, and I don't even know if I can sell this or do justice. Most of this is just how I feel inside. It's mostly about like the fear that this would evoke in you. So try to
just like on, Ghost Adventures or other shows. That's
yes, look at the
all
goosebumps.
You have to go by. Yeah.
Yes. Try to empathize with me while I tell you crazy things.
Okay.
So I pull back up to the hotel at 10:30 at night, and I see 2 doors down from my room, and it's dark, middle of nowhere, dark. The door to the room 2 doors down from mine is open, and there is a man, I'm going to say in his mid-60s, 70s. He is shambling toward the open door, and he looks bereft. Oh. He is shirtless. And
sure.
If you told me that he, just found out that somebody died, and maybe that is what happened, I would believe it. Like, he is like about to collapse, upset.
Oh my God.
But what he does
like
is
crying or
not crying, but just like, that like exhaustion, that exhausted feeling of receiving the worst news. That's sort of how he looks.
Yeah.
But he walks toward the room, and what he immediately does is he rests his head on the door frame, and he just sort of like leans his face on the door frame. And then my car pulls around, and he sees me, and he immediately straightens up. He looks like he was been caught.
Yeah, of course.
His body language communicates like, "Oh, you saw me."
Yeah.
So I pull around and I park in front of one of the other buildings, because that's where the spots were. And I can still see, barely see the guy in the door. And he's still standing there, and it's clear that he has followed me with his eyes. Like his body is still pointed in my direction. Like I almost like he's now holding a grudge that I caught him.
Yeah, right. You've seen his weakness, so now he has to show his strength.
Yes, which is not what you want.
No.
I should also say that, like, there are just like other folks in the area that like some dude had set up like a beach chair outside of his hotel room and was sitting there smoking cigarettes.
I have to tell you, so when we did the Jersey Devil Fable Festival just this past year, I also stayed in a motel. Yeah. That was a little bit sketchy. Yeah. It wasn't anywhere near this level, but it was different booking it online and then going there and seeing it. I was like, ew. But yeah. I knew I was not going to be there for that long. And lots of beach chair action as well.
A lot. Like someone's living here.
Yeah, there were people who had like decorated the outside as though it was their yard and stuff. So I think there are definitely like long stay people.
Yes. Now here at 10:30 at night, it's just me and this guy.
Oh my God.
No beach chairs to be seen. No witnesses. Okay. So I just played dumb. I just sit in my car and I'm texting you. And I'm just, maybe this guy's going to think like, oh, he's going to a room in this other building, or, I'm gathering my stuff, whatever. But really, I'm trying to watch and see if this guy will stop staring at me.
Yeah.
So he eventually, I look back up and he's no longer facing me, but he is bent double and he's dragging something in or out of the hotel room.
God.
I am not sure. So I just keep a weather eye on that horizon until I finally see him briefly, completely disappear inside the room. And this is my window.
I would say then you pounce.
Now I pounce. I got to get in my room. So I grab my stuff and I start walking to my room. And here's where we come back to one of the key issues I told you about first. I put my key in the lock and it won't turn.
Oh my God, that's right.
Because you can't just put your key in the lock and turn it. There's a trick. You have to put your key in the lock and then pull it out a little bit.
And this guy could come back at any second.
Yes, and I don't know what he's doing. He might, and again, I might just be out of my mind and,
I know.
Who knows? But this is not an environment conducive to logical, cool thinking. So here I am, like every character from a horror movie trying to start the car while Michael Myers marches towards you.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just trying to turn the key while staring 2 doors down, hoping I won't see his shadow appear in the door.
My God.
Just like, oh my God. And of course, I'm telling you the story now. I am quite alive. I get inside the room, but it did take another 90 seconds.
Were you stressed out?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh my God.
Because also, like, imagine that, like, I get anxious about just social situations. I don't want to make any form of, I don't even want to make small talk.
Right.
But it also just doesn't seem cool. But here's where the other thing that I sort of hinted at comes into play. The layout of this hotel, there are 2 buildings. It's like the Bates Motel a little bit, right? Like, so like you think about like a strip of rooms.
Yeah.
There are 2 strips of rooms. The office building, the Bates Motel itself, is in front of my block of rooms.
Okay.
You cannot see my door from the street. You cannot see.
Right. Yeah.
You cannot see this man's door from the street. We are essentially in a private situation where anything could happen behind
You're
this.
in your own little cocoon with this guy.
Anything could happen there. Ugh. But so, yes, I do get inside, and there was a period of time where I'm peeking out the window, and because I'm crazy, and at some point, and I swear I must be imagining it, I think I hear him like make a sound out there, like he's probably just clearing his throat. I don't know, but I'm a nut, so I'm freaking out. And then I'm looking at that shattered goddamn door frame, and forget even the guy 2 doors down necessarily. Who knows?
Absolutely.
So I drag a dresser and put it in front of the door and post it on social media to make myself feel normal, which is what, by the way, what like Heather is doing in the movie where Josh is like, I can tell why you use the camera. It's not quite reality.
Yeah, you're right.
By turning it into a joke to post on my Instagram, it makes it less immediately threatening.
Yes,
right? I'm sharing this now with people, but I really am sitting in that room like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And again, the room is filthy and disgusting. So I take my shoes off, but I just lie down on the bed and I take a spare shirt and wrap it around the pillow.
Yeah.
And try to sleep. I slept in like 1 to 2 hour bursts throughout the night.
What did the room smell like? What was the scent of the car air freshener? Or was the scent long gone?
I think that I think that car freshener was not fresh. I think
it didn't really look like it.
An oldie. Yeah. It was chewing gum that had lost its flavor. I did not detect a particularly offensive odor in the room.
Okay, well, I mean,
and thank goodness
God for
small
favors, right?
But you know what I did detect?
What?
When I woke up in the morning and finally pushed the dresser back where it had been.
You woke up a little later than I cared for, by the way.
Oh, I was exhausted.
I know, but I was texting Will, and he wasn't writing back. And I was like, Will, report back. And then he finally wrote back at like 10.
Yeah. The room still had one last gift for me.
Oh, God.
Well, 2. When I pushed the dresser back against the wall, I noticed some detritus at my feet. I must have dragged it into the room when I pulled the dresser. A beer bottle cap and a condom wrapper.
Ew. Of course. My God.
I left the Hillside Hotel, never to return.
Yeah.
Never ever to. Was it worth it to be part of the Blair Witch legacy?
William, you were walking amongst giants.
I was a part of history.
You were walking in history.
You're right. I will never do that ever again.
Yeah, understandable.
Interesting postscript. I asked Matt Blasey, who knows everything about the Blair Witch Project. I asked Matt Blasey, I go, what do you know about the hotel? He goes, I book the room every year when I do like the Blair Witch Experience event that he does. And he goes, usually people can come in and out. And he charitably is like, I can understand wanting to stay there, but you really only need to do it the once. And I was like, yeah, that's correct.
Dead on.
But Kristen, he told me which room Heather, Mike, and Josh stay at in the Blair Witch Project.
Yep.
It's room 108.
So close.
2 doors down from mine.
And who was staying there?
The man.
Yeah. So did the witch drive him mad?
Maybe. Was he a Rustin Parr?
Right.
That man that I was afraid of was staying in the Blair Witch room.
That's amazing. I love it.
How crazy is that?
Yeah. it's nuts.
So I will never go back there again, but mostly for the icky, yucky, disgusting feeling.
Yeah, of course.
And certainly the lack of feeling safe in any way, shape, or form behind that office building.
I would imagine that would do it as well. So what was your review like?
Oh, it's not good. It's not terribly positive.
Did they respond?
I have not checked, but they do appear to respond to many of their reviews and go like, thank you for bringing this to my attention. A lot of the reviews of this place are very positive. And then some of them are like, if I could give this -3 stars, I would. Like, this place was disgusting. Like, I found a hair, like, in my bed. Or, like, oh. No. And then they'll just be like, why, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'm so sorry it didn't live up to... What are they going to say? You know? I know. But I did write... Let's see how my review starts. I wrote... What a creepy, creepy place.
Honestly, might be doing them a favor for some people.
I did. I ended saying, I said, Blair Witch fans, it's just not worth it. Like Heather, though, ultimately I blame myself. That's what it says at the end of my review.
That's really funny.
I wrote it like the thespian I am.
Yeah, totally.
That was like my most recent scary story is available on Google reviews.
Right.
For the Hillside Hotel. Awesome. But there you go. That was the experience there. Holy shit.
Man.
Don't do it. All right.
So now let's dig into some of the stuff that they put out there to promote this very good movie.
Yes.
Unlike this very scary hotel.
On to better stuff. Really good stuff. Mm-hmm. Like really, really good stuff.
Very cool.
Let's talk about Curse of the Blair Witch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kristen, your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think it's really fun. I love that they did this. This aired on SciFi. So you could stumble across it on TV, and it's set up like a documentary. I guess for all intents and purposes, it's sort of a mockumentary.
Right.
Or just a faux documentary, really. It's not like comedic in any way. But you're meeting friends of Heather, Mike, and Josh who are lamenting that they're lost, and investigators and occult experts.
Yes.
And it's like, it was an hour special, so it comes out to 43 minutes and change or something.
With commercials, right?
Yep. And I think it's really, really cool. I don't think it's awesome to watch. I found it to drag a little bit sometimes.
Oh, okay.
It kind of gets repetitive, I felt like.
A lot of what we're going to be talking about today is very much... These are all things that are just telling the same story different ways, which is interesting. Like last week, we talked about the website, which gets into some of the lore and gives you the timeline of events from like Ellie Kedward, Eileen Treacle, Robin Weaver, Rustin Parr, Heather, Mike, and Josh.
Right.
And then Curse of the Blair Witch sort of just tells the exact same story from the website, but in a 42-minute 44-minute, TV special. Right. I almost think that each one of these things taken on their own are fantastic.
Yeah.
But this is where we start to reach an interesting limit to how many times you can tell the same lore.
I think so. And I also found it repetitive even within itself. Like I felt like it doubled back sometimes.
Oh, that's interesting.
And maybe it is just that I've heard all this a bunch recently. But so I like it a little bit better in theory than I do in practice. However, I do still like it in practice. I've seen it before and I'll definitely see it again.
I really, really enjoy it. So some of the fun stuff, the meta stuff that I really enjoy of Curse of the Blair Witch is that some of this material was shot with the intention of it being in the movie.
Right.
The original idea for the Blair Witch Project was that they were going to present it all like a documentary about the Blair Witch and about the kids who went missing investigating the legend.
So what ended up being the movie was just footage that was found within a larger documentary.
But then obviously, they pared down and they presented the movie literally as if it's just the footage from Heather's and Josh's cameras, which is genius. And took all of the more formal documentary stuff when Artisan, who picked up the movie after festivals, essentially came back and was like, we bought an hour of time on Sci-Fi. What have you got?
Yeah.
Haxon, Dan Myrick, Eduardo Sanchez, Greg Hale, they were basically like, oh, we know exactly what we want to do. we want to take some of the documentary stuff that we didn't leave in the movie,
right,
and create a special about the folklore. And I think it's incredibly effective for that. The idea that you could have seen this on TV before seeing the movie is so awesome.
It's unbelievably cool. And I love that they were willing to do that and like put money into this and produce this, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I could not love it more, to be honest. I think it's really novel, really cool, and only hampered. The only reason that like I say anything negative is because I think that the goal of Curse of the Blair Witch is the same as the goal of the website.
Yes.
They by and large tell you the exact same story, just in different mediums. So you sort of just end up being like, right, I know this.
Yeah.
But you're not meant to. And that's where it's just like, it's sort of the... it's more on us for looking at the franchise this way, which I want to keep doing, by the way. But
same,
like,
I do too. But you're right. It's looking at it with like 2023 eyes, or even like, I don't know, any amount of years since it happened.
Yeah. And
like when it came on TV, you wouldn't have known this information.
And as an obsessive who's like reading not one, not two pieces, but all of it,
right?
They're all sort of telling the same story. But it's a really good story.
That's the thing. And like it's so well done. Like the same way that a lot of people watched the movie and thought this was actual footage, I could absolutely see watching this and thinking that this is just true. Like
100%.
The only person who kind of sticks out is the occult guy.
Yeah.
But also you could write that off as being like, well, you know, maybe some people who are into witchy stuff also have a flair for the dramatic.
Totally. And this is also where like I love... Eduardo Sanchez talked about this a couple of different places that I recently listened to. On the drive down to Burkittsville, I was just like in the zone, and I was way into like listening to all these different podcasts and documentaries and commentary tracks and stuff.
Yeah, I would totally do the same thing. So
Eduardo Sanchez was on a podcast called Best Movies Never Made, which I really love the premise of. It's talking about well, it sort of says it all, right? Like movies that never actually made it to production or never made it all the way through. So Eduardo Sanchez, he's largely there to talk about like their ideas for more Blair Witch movies that they never got to make, which is probably a topic in and of itself.
Yeah.
But he does give some of the history of how all of this stuff came together. And like hearing Eduardo Sanchez talk about how much he enjoys, like when they shoot that Mystic Occurrences witchy guy. His name is Lucan Johnson, and he's in Curse of the Blair Witch. It's meant to be footage from a 70s show called Mystic Occurrences. Eduardo Sanchez talks about, he's like, that's because I love the show In Search Of. And like, we actually got to use the kind of film they would have used to make a show like that.
That's very cool.
And like you can feel it. Like there's such like a tactile feeling of the different kinds of film stock and the different ways that people are recorded. Like the sound is different for all these different sources. It's so funny. I'm going to say it again. And it's not that I'm trying to plug the thing that I worked on, but it's just like,
it just comes up.
Yeah, it comes up because it's part of the franchise, and because now with years of hindsight on it, it really feels increasingly sort of special in a way. That the Blair Witch game that I worked on for Hunt a Killer and Lionsgate, like Hunt a Killer does stuff that's all about recreating the authentic feel of documents. Like if they send you a newspaper article in a box, it's not printed on, cheap paper. It's printed on newspaper stock. Like they want you to feel like you're holding real artifacts. Yep. And oddly, like that feels like it's all coming from the same sort of like creative DNA that generated Curse of the Blair Witch and the Blair Witch Project itself. Like that like rough around the edges, unpolished, unvarnished. It is the thing it purports to be. It feels authentic.
No question. Yes.
I really admire that. And one of the things
I love that kind of thing.
One of the things I said to Eduardo Sanchez, I was like, especially with like the media landscape today, where you can literally just make a podcast and do whatever you want. Like if you just want to create mythologies, like there's never been it's only getting easier and easier.
Right. To put them out there and share them with people and have them see them.
Yep, absolutely. So I really admire that stuff about this.
I do too.
If it all feels real, it's mind blowing.
It's so cool.
And they directed this. Like this special is not, some lesser than production. This is directed by Eduardo Sanchez and Dan Myrick.
Yeah.
Ben Rock, who did a lot of the production design for the movie and wrote a lot of the mythology, he's here fleshing all these things out. And you get to meet all these like really interesting people. Michael Dakota, who was Heather's film professor. And he talks about how she was one of the students of his that had the most promise, whereas Josh felt like he was sort of like a slacker type a little bit.
Yeah.
You meet Heather's best friend, Rachel Meyer, her grandfather, Randy Donahue, Josh's girlfriend, Lisa, who says that Heather sort of rubbed her the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like you get the sense that if she was talking to just her friend about it, she would be much more harsh, but she's being diplomatic because she's on camera.
Yes, because she's in a documentary.
Right, and she's basically, I think, kind of insinuating that she was like, sort of uptight and maybe like off-putting. Like she wasn't really a warm, friendly person.
Yes, and she didn't trust her.
Yeah.
And well, look what happened.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We meet Mike's brother, Tom, who talks about how his brother was like always kind of the rebel one. And
is that his real brother? Do you know?
It's gotta be, because they show those childhood photos of them and like he sounds like
similar.
Him.
Yeah.
It's gotta be like the
I feel
lengths.
like it must.
It's so cool, the lengths they went to.
Yeah.
Sheriff Ronald Cravens talks about checking Josh's car and never finding any clues, which I'll use to sidebar into a piece of Blair Witch media I didn't have on the list for you, but I do want to briefly talk about.
Yeah.
There was a clue in that car, Kristen.
Oh, my God.
In Josh's car. Introducing Josh's Blair Witch mixtape. The available for purchase soundtrack to the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, what's on it?
A lot of music. There's a
lot of music.
Lydia Lunch, Gloomy Sunday, Public Image, Skinny Puppy, Bauhaus, The Creatures, Typo Negative, Meat Beat, Manifesto.
All right, so he's into like industrial music.
Yeah, I guess so. But like, this is in lore. The soundtrack for the movie is in character of all this being real. This is not the soundtrack to the movie The Blair Witch Project. No, this is the mixtape that was found in the cassette player in Josh's car when they recovered it. They say on the cover of it, they say, dedicated to the memory of Heather, Mike, and especially Josh, whose great taste in music inspired this album. Rest in peace. That's disc,
so cool.
It's so cool. The disc itself is designed to look like one of the recovered film canisters.
Oh my God. When did you get this?
I don't remember.
Have you had it for a long time?
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
And I forgot I had it because I've got all this junk that I've collected forever. But I'm glad I have it, because if this isn't proof enough that I'm meticulously re-documenting the sprawling franchise.
No, I think that it's well established.
But so it says also on the thing that yes, this CD comes from a mixtape found in Josh's car. The tape was turned over to this record company for release. Like there's got to be a whole story of how I'm even holding this,
right?
Like, and
they're
again,
crossing all their T's.
Is it too far or too commercial? I admire it. I
say, why not? I mean, I think it's awesome. I'm just surprised. Like, money must go into this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm just, I love that they went so far.
They're playing the game.
They were able to.
They're playing the game, and I love it. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk more about Curse of the Blair Witch, I think, in just a second. I've got a couple more insights from it, and then some of the other things that we're going to talk about here.
Yes.
But that's after the break.
Oh, yeah.
Stay with us.
Where we talk about patreon.com/GTTUpod. This is where you can support the show. We have a number of different tiers. You can figure out which one works the best for you. We have a Discord. We have weekly episodes of our second podcast, The Netherworld Dispatch. We have commentary tracks for The Blair Witch Project, all 5 current Scream movies. Oh, 6, right?
6, yeah.
6 current Scream movies, all the Twilight movies. It is a treasure trove over there. And we appreciate your support more than we can say.
No, very much. We appreciate your support. Thank you. The Guide to the Unknown has long been like a really great, stable project for us, really. That like, it's unbelievable how much people are willing to support us. And thank you so much for that. It makes a huge difference
in our lives. So
yes, it really does.
Thank you so much. The same way that people sometimes, it sounds like a humble brag, but the same way that people sometimes will message us and be like, oh, thank you so much. Like, you keep me company at work, whatever, like make my days better. Like this makes our days better, like our lives function better. So thank you very much.
Without a doubt. It means a lot. And I depend on a lot of this. Thank you.
Yep.
So go find a tier that fits if that's your thing. Most recent episode is the Netherworld Dispatch 122. We talk about a show called Happy Town.
Yeah.
It was a 1-season wonder small town mystery show. I am the writer of a 1-season wonder small town mystery show called Blackwood.
Yep, that's a podcast.
I think we've got a real soft spot for this kind of material, and that show is a doozaroo.
Sure is.
So go check that out.
We talk about it from top to bottom, spoil it, and it's fun.
I've got a very timely, wonderful review for us right now that comes to us from Emily Watcher. I love this podcast. Will and Kristen are delightful to listen to. They cover a wide range of spooky topics from cryptids, hauntings, urban legends, the latest in horror films, and more. They do their research incredibly well, and I always learn something new from each episode. I had the pleasure of meeting Will last weekend in Burkittsville for the Blair Witch screening, and he is just as awesome in person as he is on the show.
That's nice.
I would love. I very much appreciate that.
How much money did you slip this person?
I know. I gave everybody a pin and a sticker, so I greased those palms.
Yeah.
But how awesome would it be if this review was like, he was a monster?
I know.
You know,
he was nothing like he seems.
He's a phony.
Yeah. Stay away.
It's so cool to hear one of your favorite podcasters speak in person. I cannot say enough to support this amazing podcast. Give it a listen. 5 stars. Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much.
Seriously, thank you so much, Emily. That is so, so sweet. I love it.
One of my last notes here real quick. I have a fun development for actually our Patreon. Back to the Patreon.
Yes.
In the last week, Spotify and Patreon announced a sort of a team up. And so we've gotten into it. You can now add the Netherworld Dispatch in your Spotify app, which previously you were not able to do. In order to do this, if you're a patron, you can go to patreon.com/gttupod/membership, and you should be able to follow links from there. Or you can search for the Netherworld Dispatch within Patreon, follow links from there. It does seem like there are a couple of steps to take, but it might just be worth it to get the Netherworld Dispatch where you already listen. So
yeah, it's very convenient to have the RSS feed there. I do that on Apple Podcasts, and it's worth taking a few minutes.
It's nice to have it in one place.
Yeah.
And our logos, I think, work neatly together, which is kind of fun if you get them side by side. Last note, if you're halfway through the episode and you're wondering, yes, Kristen and I are recording remotely. I always find myself wondering that when I listen to a show sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. We usually say it off the top if this is the case, because you can kind of tell. Yeah, we're recording remotely. I messed up my back, and it's really not terrible or anything, but I'm just trying to be smart about it. So I stayed home so I could record from bed.
A little interesting that the one of us who didn't go to Burkittsville to pay their respects to the witch ends up bedridden. Wouldn't you say?
That is actually awful interesting. Methinks I should pay a visit to the wood.
Yes.
Just to send up my regards. And perhaps my back will be healed.
Clickety-clack, clickety-clack.
That's, clickety-clackety, clickety-clackety. I'm the witch of the woods. And also me saying maybe my back will be healed. It's spelled HEAL''D.
Very good. Yes. Thank you.
Like olden times.
Things will start to, your vertebrae will fall in line now.
Just like
click, click,
yeah,
click,
maybe
click,
the clickety-clack is my back straightening up.
Exactly. All right. So to conclude our conversation about Curse of the Blair Witch, I took a few notes. A lot of the interviews, they're all very interesting, and I highly recommend watching Curse of the Blair Witch. But it does cover similar ground that we talked about last week, except I've got a few specific things that I thought were interesting context that seems exclusive to this documentary. So there's a professor of folklore, Charles Morehouse, who talks about the connection between the Blair Witch and the Bell Witch, which I understand was one of the inspirations behind the Blair Witch to begin with. But he also says that Ellie Kedward was specifically a Catholic, now living in a predominantly Protestant community.
Yes.
Which I guess is one of the reasons why she was somewhat outcasted.
Right.
They blindfolded her, took her out to the woods in the middle of winter, and tied her to a tree. Different sources will describe what happened to Ellie Kedward slightly differently. Mm-hmm. Here he says that she was tied to a tree. Later I've got a source that will say that she was tied to essentially a wheelbarrow and just deserted.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like there is not a concrete answer here, and different people still to this day say different things. Of course, we all know it's fictional.
Yes,
and maybe these are genuine bloopers or mistakes that were left in. But to me, it all contributes to the feeling of like what real life folklore does. It shifts.
I assume that everything, and it's probably like a positive bias, that everything has been meticulously mapped out. Right. Everything is, you know what I mean? But you're right. It could just be that.
It could just be.
Kind of, yep.
Here's a mistake that I think I caught. Bill Barnes, who I've long loved and tried to work references into the game.
This guy's a pleasure.
He's a Burkittsville historian. He refers to Ellie Kedward as Ellie Kedwards.
Yes, I know.
Blooper, one for the real.
Or is it that was so long ago that they're like different records or something?
Yeah, maybe he
has
a different...
Like maybe it was written Kedward and Kedwards in different places.
That's interesting. Yeah, you can certainly...
I think that happens.
Oh, it definitely does. Names have been changed a million different times.
Yeah.
Sometimes names are just changed because somebody literally wrote the wrong thing on a piece of paper.
Right.
You know. Back to Mystic Occurrences, this 70s In Search Of type show with Lucan Johnson, who starts by gazing at himself in the mirror, or I guess gazing at us.
Yeah, he's looking at us.
And then he like turns to face us, and he talks about how like a lot of history was lost from the burning times.
He's wearing like a really like kind of like flouncy shirt with like abstract squiggles on it and like little glasses, and this guy is really a sight to see.
It's pretty comedic.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's broad.
He turns and looks at the camera and he goes, "I'm Lucan Johnson and I'm a witch." And it goes like doodly 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 doodly. It's very funny. But so he describes Ellie Kedward as the reason she might have taken blood from children is if she detected some form of illness.
Right.
That she was a good witch, a Wiccan, right?
Yeah, that she was essentially acting as like a leech.
A healer. Right. Yes. Bloodletting to get the illness out.
Right.
That's his stance, which is interesting. And we, of course, have last week's comic book that suggests the kids made it up and there was no bloodletting. Who knows? Who the hell knows? The Blair Witch Cult, that book from 1809, which is fictional. There's an excerpt from it that I want to read to you because I thought it was awesome. It is full of stories of bloodletting itself. So this is what the Blair Witch Cult, which coined the term the Blair Witch supposedly back in 1809, has to say. The awful hag wrenched the boy's head from his writhing body and defiled the church with his warm blood. It was then that I noticed a dog's teeth had sprouted from her leg. She controlled the animals of the forest, even the trees seeming to do her bidding. When she walked, she didn't touch the ground, and her followers made a horrible mulch of the countless dead littering the streets.
Woof.
Some evocative, violent images. She wrenched a kid's head off his shoulders.
And turned something into mulch. Like,
what? Is this why people fled the community when all her accusers were... punished.
Yeah.
Beyond her death, They
don't want this.
Dog's teeth growing out of her legs. Like,
that's so weird.
That is some crazy,
what a strange detail. Yeah.
It sort of evokes what Mary Brown said about horsehair, but it also speaks to something that happens in the 2016 movie of like stuff growing on your body, which we'll hopefully get there someday.
Yep.
There is a very quickly dropped line about the Eileen Treacle incident where she's dragged under the water. Bill Barnes, I believe, says that there's somebody who tried to drink from that creek in the 13 days after, where it was like, full of oil and bundles of twigs and stuff, and they died.
Yeah.
They just died from drinking that water.
Yeah.
And Charles Morehouse, the folklorist, is skeptical and blames the Eileen Treacle sort of story on what we talk about with urban legends all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually parental neglect that led to her death, not a witch dragging her under the water. He's like the voice of a skeptic, while Bill Barnes is the voice of a believer, so to speak.
Right.
The Robin Weaver incident of 1886 is fun because Robin Weaver is the girl who walked into the woods and the search party that was killed on Coffin Rock, that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Well, she never died. She came back out of the woods and lived in Burkittsville. Just in case certain parties are listening, you can go into the woods and come back out. This is proof.
Yeah, right. It's all good.
Certain listeners might recognize what I'm talking about, but there's precedent in the franchise for actually leaving the woods without dying.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
There are many debates that I've been a part of.
That's fun.
Anyway, Robin Weaver lived in Burkittsville until at least until she was 50, according to Bill Barnes, because when he was a child, she told him a story.
Yeah.
Saying this lady appeared to her, and she wasn't walking, she was floating in the air, really, and took her by the hand and led her to an old house back in the woods and took her down into the basement and left her there. It was 1886. An old house in the woods took her to the basement.
Right.
And said she'd be back. And she left. And the little girl sat there, she said, for several hours. And finally she got scared. She ran and was able to crawl through a window and ran back to town. But in the meantime, the town had started to search for her. They sent out a search party to look for her in the woods. And so all I have to say is, was that house Rustin Parr's house?
Right. What does this mean?
60 years before it was built?
Mm-hmm.
Much like and
then it appears again after it was burned down.
Yeah. What's going on there? Was Robin Weaver in Rustin Parr's house in the late 1800s?
This house ain't right.
Not at all. About the bodies on Coffin Rock, they were alive when they were tied up. Pagan symbols were carved into their skin. We'll see that in a future episode. Mm-hmm. Their bodies were in a severe state of decomposition, says Charles Morehouse, and then the bodies would plumb disappear. They were seen, and then when people returned to take them, the bodies had disappeared.
Yeah.
Charles Morehouse has a pet theory. He says that all of these events seem to occur roughly about 60 years apart. He doesn't know why, but he did clock this pattern. Yeah,
that's right.
And so all I can say is, like, for a franchise to keep telling more stories, you just go like, you just never address that again, that they happen 60 years apart, right?
That's too far apart.
You just go like, it's getting closer and closer together.
Yeah. It actually seems more like
every other year.
7.
Yeah.
7, 8.
How frequently can we make these?
Yeah, right.
The 1940s Rustin Parr footage makes him look like Chuck Norris in his cell.
I know. I was like, look at this guy.
I know. Behind his beard, there's only another fist.
Yeah, that's right.
Rustin Parr.
It's a tough guy.
The Blair Witch is afraid of him. Can we make a bunch of Rustin Parr memes? And then here's really the last thing that I've got from the Curse of the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
David Mercer, a professor of anthropology, he led the expedition that eventually recovered the footage. There's more insight into how the footage was found even than what was on the website.
Yes, I know. I love this.
And it's even more clear that it was a paranormal event. Mm-hmm. They show a drawing. They show a chart of Rustin Parr's house. It's said to have burned down in 1942, and yet it's on the footage, undeniably. Yeah. But so they show that the burned remains, all this compacted ash and debris, is beneath a layer of topsoil. And then there's what he refers to as sterile soil. The bag with the cameras is all down there. It's as if it had been there for years. Mm-hmm. Years! But remember the title crawl of the Blair Witch Project. A year later, their footage was found.
Right.
They ended up back in time, and that footage has been sitting there for maybe decades, waiting for somebody to find it.
This was like the most fun part of it to me.
I cannot tell you how much I love that.
Yep. It's amazing. It just like opens your mind to a lot of other, honestly, just it leads to a lot of questions that are really fun.
Totally.
Or just one question of like, what the hell? What does that mean?
Yeah, what's going on?
And you can just leave it there.
And now, for most people, a lot of people would say, like, you shouldn't need to look at this other material to enjoy a movie.
Don't, but
I would say that the movie is, I mean, we've, not to rehash our conversation because we could do this all day, but like, I would say the movie is distinctly paranormal. I still bristle against this idea that you can look at that movie and be like, Mike and Josh killed Heather.
I do as well. It never even occurred to me until I heard that was a theory online.
Certainly, if you look at any of this other material, it's night and day. But it's still fun to hear the characters themselves. It's fun to hear the sheriff be like, I still think it was a hox. I don't know. I don't know anything about carbon dating. I don't know anything about that. What I do know is you can't time travel. So this is a hoax. You know, like, I love that.
I do too. So it's not really necessary to enjoy the film, but I do think it enhances it.
I definitely agree. Anything else about Curse of the Blair Witch?
I don't think so.
All right, let's move on to Sticks and Stones Investigating the Blair Witch, a Blockbuster exclusive from October 1999.
Right, which is basically this.
It's almost exactly Curse of the Blair Witch, just a little bit faster.
Yes, it's got like 12 minutes trimmed off of it or something.
Yes, and actually the sterile serial comment comes from this. I got that wrong. It's not in Curse of the Blair Witch, it's from this.
Okay.
The only real unique things that I felt were worth calling out, and I would also say watch this. Don't watch them all back to back to back to back to back, but each one of these deserves their time, I feel.
I think so. I do. Even if they're like the same thing, like watch one and then put the other one on the background or something.
Sure, for sure. To me, something that I enjoy, they show a couple of things that were like unused material almost. One is blatantly said to be an interview that Dan Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez conducted with two volunteer firefighters who were also part of the search team that tried to find Heather, Mike, and Josh. They have seen the footage. They've seen the found footage. And so their big thing is like in the movie, you know, for them it's a documentary, but like in the movie, they're being like, well, it's Friday. And they basically are like, we were out there by that point.
Yeah.
So like, how
did we miss them?
How did we miss them? Because we had planes, we had sonar, we had all these things. Like
that's another thing that I love.
The contradictions that the characters themselves are wrestling with.
Yeah.
You're watching them struggle to make sense of what to them is just like indisputable fact.
I find that really exciting and like sit up straight kind of stuff. Like the fact that they were out there in the same area but not seeing them.
I love that.
Along with the footage being found in soil from like a million years ago. It's like, what does that mean? It's just so fun.
I know. I couldn't love it more, to be honest. That's some of my favorite stuff.
Yep.
And then the last thing, there is some additional footage that is like a deleted scene from the movie, basically. It's Heather and Mike. Josh has already disappeared by this point. I think this footage might be from the final day.
Yeah.
And it's sort of just like an extended scene of the two of them wrestling with this same concept, where Mike is he keeps being like, he's trying to let Heather off the hook. She is already blaming herself for everything that's gone wrong.
Right.
He's essentially taking the stance, how could you be responsible?
He has now swung back the other way, which happens sometimes. Like you get really, really mad at somebody or something, and then that sort of fizzles out and you kind of, change your mind.
He says a human cannot be faulted for something this enormous. He's basically like, we've been walking all day and ended up going in a circle. Like this is, I can't believe this is happening. But something crazy is happening.
Yeah.
And more blatantly, Heather underlines it. She says, I'm no longer filming for my documentary. I'm filming for whoever finds this footage so they know what happened to us.
I know. I love this little thing.
I love it. And this is essentially...
you also hear them acknowledge that this is paranormal, basically, in a way that they don't in the actual movie.
And this is basically the note that this all ends on, is Heather saying, if anything happens to us, everyone will know exactly what it was. Well, guess what? The dark irony is still no.
Yeah.
They did find the footage and still no one knows what happened to you. It's that bad.
No, because so much is inscrutable and we never found the bodies.
I love it.
It's awesome. It's just the best.
I just love it.
I do too.
All right, so let's wrap up with some fun, silly stuff.
With Scooby Doo.
Scooby Doo. One of the last things of 1999, the the launch of the Blair Witch as hitting the ground running as a multimedia experience.
Truly.
And somehow Scooby Doo is part of the story.
I know, for the Scooby Doo Project. Or no, what's it called? Is it called
No, that's what it's called. It's called the Scooby Doo Project. Had you ever seen this before?
Yeah, I'd seen a little bit of it. I hadn't seen the whole thing before. But so this aired on Cartoon Network. There were a series of promos for it that kind of like it all sort of plays into a united story.
It aired on Halloween 1999, which means, the Blair Witch Project had only been out for a couple of months.
Right.
They started working on this before the Blair Witch came out. They basically pegged like, this is going to be a fun thing to hang a little special on. So they were doing a Scooby-Doo marathon on Halloween. So what they did was they essentially said, let's do the Blair Witch thing. Let's say that the Scooby gang went missing and we found a bag of tapes. Well, they found a bag of hundreds of tapes. It's every episode of Scooby-Doo that's going to be in this marathon that they're going to be playing all day. Yeah. And they also found, Scooby snacks and all this stuff. But it's a found footage style Scooby episode, essentially.
So it's like, it's real life footage, like of our world.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is like way harder, I think, in some ways, than just contracting an animator and being like, because Hanna-Barbera cartoons were like notoriously supposed to be cheap from my understanding. But they took an incredible leap and shot real life footage and then edited the animated characters into the real life footage.
Right, like that Paula Abdul video with the cat.
MC Scat Cat.
That's right.
Yeah, it's like, or Roger Rabbit. Sure. Or any number of other more familiar things to people, I would say.
To someone.
But I think it looks stylized and cool.
It looks great.
And I would watch more of it.
Oh, I totally would too. It was super fun. And I don't know, a lot of the little a lot of the little commercial breaks are like really funny and stupid. It's like the cops counting out Scooby snacks and stuff as evidence. And it's delightful.
Yeah, it's essentially a series. It was aired during commercial breaks in like 1 to 2 minute bursts. Yeah. But Cartoon Network evidently edited it all together and aired it later. And now it's officially on their YouTube channel and stuff, which is very cool. But it's a very, very simple story. It's like they do the interviewing locals thing, but all the locals are telling a multitude of stories. Civil War soldier, big evil cat or rat or something. Yeah. Where the Scooby Gang is basically like, I don't know what we're investigating at this point.
Right, what are we in for?
But they get lost. They end up in a house in the middle of the woods, and there's a guy. Oh, they're in a tent where the tent shakes, and they do the very Blair Witchy
it's like
scene.
A real life tent sort of thing, but you're hearing their voices being like, "Ow, Bart," whatever, and you don't see the actual cartoon people. It's fun,
which is super cool. Yeah, a lot of it is. I think probably from a production standpoint, it's also like they're behind the camera.
Oh,
so we only need the voices, so it's cheaper that way and easier to produce. But this clearly was a lot of work. And 1999 to pull this off for essentially a gag.
I know. Outstanding. It's so goofy. And it turns out, there's always like a big unmasking of who the bad guy is. First, we see a bad guy who's just some guy who just felt like scaring him.
Yep. And he's like, well, it's Halloween. Of course I'm wearing a scary ghoul goblin mask and chasing you. And they go, well, why were you scaring us in the woods then, shaking the tent? And he goes, I didn't shake your tent.
Dun, dun, dun.
And there's another monster pops out of the window and the camera falls over. Yeah. And that's, who knows what happened from there.
Right.
It's cute.
Their bodies were never found.
It's simple. It's sweet.
Gorgeous.
And I would happily watch more of it. The Scooby Doo Project, highly recommend.
Totally recommend. It's like very silly and it flies by. It's interesting to look at because of the mix of animation and real world stuff. Like it's great.
They even refer to themselves. Oh, here's the opening title, because you got to do the black screen with the white text. It says, in the fall of 1999, 4 teenage sleuths and their Great Dane got lost in the woods while in search of a mystery. This is their story. Yeah. The Scooby Doo Project. The definitive parody, it says. And I agree.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
We have a whole episode of the Netherworld Dispatch looking at Blair Witch parodies. And for all intents and purposes, they're all lowbrow, stupid, or just confusing.
I think we might have looked at a little bit of this in there, perhaps.
Maybe that would make sense. I think this is like amazing that this exists. It really is. The same year that the Blair Witch Project came out, and it's so loving. In many ways, all this stuff of like the cops looking at the footage on the evidence table, that feels, because the Blair Witch Project is just the found footage.
Right.
This is also a parody of Curse of the Blair Witch. Oh my God.
Oh, you're right. We do get cops in Blair Witch 2, but it wasn't time yet.
No, not just yet. No. 1 year, which is insane.
I know.
But yeah. The only other thing that I have to share with you, Chrissy, is a shorty. And again, just to underline how obsessive I am.
Yeah.
I'm literally going through everything. I realized a while ago I'm never going to be the guy that has the biggest collection of something. I just can't.
I don't know.
I can't buy all this stuff. What I want, because I'm obsessed with story, I want all the lore.
Yeah, that's the best part. And
I want it digitally. So I've literally been like scanning books.
He's cataloging.
And stuff. Just like a hobby.
Yep. You're the archivist now.
Yeah. I can be beat about knowledge of the Blair Witch Project, but overall franchise, I'm aiming to have the quintessential digital library of the entire franchise, so that I could be sailing through the air in Spain, and all of a sudden read Blair Witch Files Book 6.
Oh,
can you imagine?
Dream, yeah.
My fantasy. But so I stopped playing video games, and now I just scan the books when I have free time. Like it's crazy, but I like it.
I think that's awesome.
I found out about the Blair Witch trading cards is what I'm trying to tell you about.
Yes.
72 trading cards were produced. This is like, to me, this is for 1999. This is like the height of the commercialism. I don't know why.
I know. I don't know. It's just like a little silly. I guess because it's sort of in a way like lacking that story element. It's more just kind of like tchotchke.
Yes, I think so. It's just a collectible.
Right.
And I know people love their collectibles.
Oh, yeah.
But I did collect them all. I have, not physically, mind you.
Okay,
I found pictures that people took of all of them, and I just put them in a big document, so I have them.
Exactly. I mean, they're preserved.
Which is why I do actually have some, and this is where it all pays off why I'm doing this. It paid off. I've got literally 2 things that are worth telling you about this trading card set.
Oh, boy.
Because it basically retells the website stuff again. It tells Rust and Parr, it tells Robin
That's what
Weaver.
it is, yeah.
But I liked how bluntly they phrased a couple things. Card 8, labeled The Legend, and it shows like a little crime scene in Rust and Parr's basement. It says, Rust and Parr's house burned down in 1942, although it inexplicably resurfaced in 1994 footage. Like Excellent. Nowhere else has somebody said it that plainly.
Yeah,
which I appreciate.
I like that too. Cut right to the chase.
And card 35 regarding the quote unquote cemetery or burial ground that Heather, Mike, and Josh find with the cairns, the rocks.
Okay.
Interestingly, while many Indian villages flourished near what was later to become the town of Blair, there are no indigenous records of any kind that point to Native Americans in or around the Black Hills Forest. Which is a part of the history that is somewhat explored this early on. I have heard Eduardo Sanchez talk about, like, he does envision that this all predates Ellie Kedward, which is what I've been saying forever.
Yeah.
But she became the face of this witch notion. Gave it a name. But like his thing was like, yeah, maybe it does extend further back into like Native American. And there's certainly tropes around the Native American burial ground concept and stuff.
No, but like, factually, they would have been there.
Sure.
So if this is going on back in time, then they would there would be crossover in that Venn diagram.
Totally. Except this collectible card says there are no indigenous records.
Right.
Around the Black Hills Forest.
But you know what? Like I don't know if that's is that canon?
What's canon? What counts as canon?
I know.
How does anyone measure that or determine what is or isn't canon in the Blair Witch world?
Yeah, in this in particular.
I don't know.
I wonder though.
I'll tell you this.
That strikes me as
it contributes in my head. It informs how I feel about this.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is just a natural event. Maybe people avoided that region. By the way,
that's interesting.
That was something that when I was working on Blackwood, there's not much I can say about Blackwood, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things
what do you mean without spoiling it?
Oh, I would happily spoil it. I've actually considered, do you know that it's going to be 5 years?
Yeah.
This October since Blackwood, which is all about 5 years ago, 3 kids in the town of Blackwood.
Yeah.
I've considered doing a little retrospective of Blackwood in October.
Yeah, if you feel like it, I think you should. But
I've got some renewed interest from people around Blackwood lately, which has been very, very nice. In the Discord, actually.
Yes.
People were talking about Blackwood, which I greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But no, when I was breaking the story of Blackwood, one of my big sort of like secret backstories was that what was because it's all very Blackwood is a Blair Witch, like a reflection in part on how I feel about the Blair Witch. But my thing was always that Blackwood was never an area that was populated until essentially colonists came in and thought, well, we're stronger. People stay away from this area.
Yeah.
Well, we're the exact kind of people that can go in there and really whip this place into shape.
Right, of course.
And then the rest of that history is written in, disappearances and death for that hubris. But it was an unpopulated area. It's interesting to see on this trading card.
That is interesting.
That Burkittsville might have been the same.
Yeah, that is really cool. I gotcha. That's neat.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
So there you go. That's the Blair Witch in the year 1999. 2 episodes back to back, a double-hander, kicking off our 300... The next century of Guide to the Unknown, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. I know. So thank you. We really, really hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to go ahead and say we will be doing more Blair Witch in the future.
Oh,
I hope you all want that.
It seems like people do. I think the writing is sort of on the wall. I do want to take some pauses in between, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But
my dream would be to like wrap this up on the 25th anniversary, like take a year.
Yep. We talked about that. It'd be like every couple months or something.
But when we come back, I think we're going to be talking about the year 2000 starts with a bang. Really, the year 2000 is where most of the Blair Witch franchise was released. If you just by the numbers, comic books, more novels, young adult books, the sequel, video games,
right?
It explodes in the year 2000. So that's we got to bucket that out.
Yeah,
specials.
Seriously.
There are more Curse of the Blair Witch type specials to watch. There's a lot.
Really?
Oh, yes. And so I am, again, and I want to have a meeting with you, an official meeting where we can really like pace it out. But like, I want to make sure that every episode we really have something worth sinking our teeth into, or also look at some of the inspirations that influenced the Blair Witch, like the Salem witch trials,
right? Or
the last broadcast, which I mentioned briefly in last week's episode. I think that this is going to be a celebration that lasts all year, everybody.
I think you're absolutely right.
Until we get sick of it.
Yeah,
Until people tell us to stop doing it.
Of course. We'll keep going back to this well or this very shallow little creek.
Shallow grave in the woods. Yeah, shallow creek. You're right. Yeah, let us grab you and pull you into the shallow creek of the Blair Witch lore.
That's right.
I just love it. And I think a lot of it has been overlooked, right? That's the other thing is like, I think a lot of this stuff is out of print or hasn't been given its due in some form. And some of it I haven't even seen. And I'm very curious to look at what I maybe have been missing out on.
Yeah, totally.
But for sure, at the end of the day, it only makes sense if everybody out there is enjoying it too. So let us know what you think, everybody, at GTTUpod, gttupod@gmail.com. And thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to everybody who came out to the screening in Burkittsville. I had so much fun.
Yeah,
old listeners, new listeners, whoever you are, hope you're having a good time with us. Patreon.com/GTTUpod for more. Check out the Blair Witch parodies. Check out our commentary track. I would love to do a commentary track for Book of Shadows someday.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right?
Hell yeah.
And you can also follow us online individually.
I'm at Chillin' Kristen.
I am at The Myth Traveler. So thanks again, everybody. We'll be back next week for more spooky old scary stories and curious lore.
Woo.
But until that time comes, we must travel.
Back to the netherworld go we. And away from that scary a motel.
Yes, forever.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the Blair Witch, but I'm never going there again.
No, doesn't seem good.
Even me telling you that story, would you go?
No.
Even though it's in the movie and it's kind of surreal?
No. Mm-mm.
It's a wise choice. It's a smart choice.
Yeah. No, not for me.
It's a wise decision you made.
Thank ya.